Good morning, everyone, and welcome to The Next Generation. I am Cynthia Talbert, and this is episode 3. Today, we're dealing with emotional healing. Emotional healing is a very difficult topic. Today, we have some beautiful ladies who are here with us today, and they are going to help me with the show. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
Do you feel that in 2013 that there's still a need for emotional healing?
Yes, we do.
Certainly.
Why?
Because people are hurting.
And in what ways are they hurting?
They're hurting emotionally, they're hurting financially, they're hurting with personal things within problems, and they need to know that there's a place that they can go for healing, for help,
Anyone else? Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I have thoughts on it because I see it from a day-to-day basis at the community center, and people come, and when I sit in that seat, and they come in and just small things that they need, and we think that we have problems. For instance, a lady came in, and she had a 6-week-old baby, and the lights was off. All she needed was $45.
Wow.
So instead of me saying, oh, I'm going to call my treasurer, I went within my budget, which is very small itself, but God blesses me every time I share. And I feel that was very personal to me, knowing that this child and this family would have lights at the end of the day.
I know that why I chose to do this segment is because for about 13 years, I've been an attorney, and I consider it to be a ministry to people who are in broken up homes as far as with their divorces, they're going to divorce, dependency court, where the children have been abused, there are allegations of abuse. It can be sexual, it can be emotional, physical. We deal with people who are losing their homes, they've lost their jobs. We deal with people who are going through health issues as well. And what you're looking at is all of this adds up to a need for emotional healing. A lot of these people are hurting. Sometimes we don't think about the fact, oh, they lost a job. Oh, well, people lose a job. No, these people are hurting. A lot of people identify with their job. That's a part of their identity. And they actually go through an identity crisis when they lose the job. Some people, it's about even positions in the church. Losing a position in the church that has you've long identified with. And then there's still others with relationships. When relationships end, and maybe we did not think that they would. And finally, one I can think of would be death. When we lose loved ones. I know in my church, and some of you are from my church, God had blessed us with longevity. A lot of people live to be a ripe old age, and then, we maybe have a funeral once every other year or so, but then the year before last, well, actually last year, we had about 12 people within the church to die, and some were actually in their 40s, and some in their 30s almost died, but for God intervening, and so having to deal with all of that death. At one point, we actually had 4 funerals within a week and a half. I don't know if you remember that a lot. And that was just, at one point, when the phone would ring in the morning, I would think, oh my gosh, no, not another person. Somebody else has died. And then my parents are older, so you never know when it's going to be the call about them. So that was a difficult period. And we've had 5 to die this year. One just died last Thursday, and we just had a funeral last Sunday. So all of that death, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. In addition, I've been a religious volunteer at the Marion County Jail for 13 years, and I minister to the ladies, and I minister to the juveniles who are being sentenced as adults. A lot of those people have been sexually molested, physically abused, emotionally abused. There's a lot of pain there as well, so I've been watching that as well. And I've had my own personal heartache, pain, conflict as well. So in the midst of all this, I thought, there are a lot of hurting people out there, and that I need to try to address some of that hurting. So we've heard the hearts of those who are hurting. We've heard their cries going forth. And when we come back, we're going to take a look at some of the things that we do when we're hurting and in need of healing.
Okay, what impressed me mostly about the book, The Song of Eve, is there's a young girl. She's leaving her parents' home. She leaves her fiancé, riches and wealth and prestige, to go into the wilderness to just be with her God. And it is so impressive. It is like, I can't really believe that she did that.
To order your copy of the inspirational book, Song of Eve, call 352-622-7607, order online at Amazon.com, or simply visit the website on your screen.
I've read the Song of Eve for several times because I run 2 corporations, and my day can be exceedingly hectic and stressful. But when I read the Song of Eve, it literally transports me back in time to another day, another time, another era. The author uses language that's so detailed and picturesque, and you can see flowers, and you can see the trees and the mountains and the cascading waterfalls, and it just gives me peace and it gives me calm, thoroughly engages me.
I read the Song of Eve because of the fact that I was traveling and I needed to burn some time. So I picked up the book and began to read it, and I found it to be very interesting because it really painted a picture to me. I like the way the author painted the picture through words. So that's the kind of book that I need to keep me engaged. So that's why I read the book Songs of Eve, and I encourage anybody with a little spare time just to maybe read the first chapter of it and see, doesn't it do the same thing for you.
Welcome back. We are dealing with emotional healing and brokenness throughout the land. The question that we left off with was, what do we do when we're dealing with difficult situations? When we're hurting, what are some of the things that we do?
We suppress our pain.
Suppress.
Suppress means that we keep it inside, we internalize. And when you internalize a lot of things, that affects your body, your temple. It can cause all types of diseases. Also, the issue with pride. When you are actually hurting inside, your pride, some people's pride will not let them go forward and let others know of what they're going through because they don't know how to let it out. So they keep it, again, they're suppressed what they're feeling and what they're going through.
Anyone else?
That makes it even worse when you can't speak about it because it does something to you internally. But then again, we as children of God should be able to recognize a lot of that. We should have that discerning spirit. And sometimes we should pick that up.
That we can see when other people are hurting. But sometimes we're in our own zone, dealing with our own lives, our own issues, and we neglect to look around and to think of other people. We do. Anyone else?
I can attest to what you just said as zoning out. In my, what I call the dash, my life, from the time I was born to present day, my walk with Jesus has been faulty. It's been high and been low. You know, when you, as you said, you go through the emotional pains of life, different things that happen in your lifetime will put you in a position where you have so much anger because you don't understand, why is this happening to me? Even though you have the foundation, you may have that foundation of God because you've been brought up within the church, but you walk away from God when you're going through. And some people, I'm sure, can relate to that same situation. Now, in my life, I've had a lot of pain, but the way I deal with the pain is I love to make people smile. I love to help people to try to forget what I'm going through because I don't want to face that. I don't want to deal with it. If I can help somebody else by just putting a smile on their face, then I believe I'm doing what I have to do. Such as you mentioned, I minister and have been ministering to youth for the majority of my life. As a survivor of sexual abuse as a child, I relate to some of the pains that children have gone through, are going through to this day, as well as the elderly and the things that they may go through in life. So it's my task, my job, my purpose that God has put into my spirit to help others by any means necessary. Reaching out again, just a friendly touch. Just a friendly touch, just to say, you know what, good morning, how are you? You know what, I love you, I don't know you, they may think I'm crazy, but okay, but as long as I can see you smile, that does something to my heart.
I just want to touch on what both of you said. One thing is the pride issue. If we could just understand as humans that we're all going to go through difficult situations, and it's okay to go through a difficult situation. There should be no embarrassment about it. Other people have lost their homes. Other people have been sick. Other people have had their marriages dissolved. Other people have been abused in some way or another. There's nothing new under the sun. All these things have happened before. So if we would remember this when we're going through, and a lot of times we don't. Instead, we're like, I'm the only one. Oh my gosh, if they only knew. This has happened to other people before you. You're not the only one.
Let them know that.
Yes.
Nothing that easy. Let them listen. You're not in this by yourself.
Yes.
And it's all right.
Yes.
You have to know how to warm up to a person. And you can get the confidence. I mean, they'll talk to you if you know how to talk to them. Listening, very important. Listening is very important. People know when you're real and when you're not.
They sure do.
They know, and we need to be able to show this love that we talk about.
As
Be
we walk
loving
in
to the unlovable. Be ready to sit down on that dirty couch with that dirty baby.
Yes, that's right.
Put it in your lap.
Stupid.
Say, I love you. Always wear something you can throw in the machine. Because you're going to run into all kinds of people. And in God's sight, people are just people. You represent Him. That's how we represent Him. That's how we serve. That's by serving other people.
Don't be condemning to whatever the situation that the person that you're going to. Don't condemn. Don't point the fingers, because God says we must have a loving heart. You know, we should not judge, because we may have walked in a different way, but whatever that person's going, they have to entrust themselves with you. They have to feel that they can open up and say, you know what, I need some help. I have an issue, whatever that issue is. And they don't want somebody who's pointing the finger, well, you shouldn't. They don't want that. They don't need that. They need the love of God. They just need the love. If they don't have a belief in God, but you know, by the way you present yourself, by the time you finish with them, they may want to be inspired and have that love of God.
That's right.
So it's how you present yourself.
And you know, the prayer ministry, you would be surprised to know the requests and the confidentiality that they come with. And you got to listen. I found one thing. Don't talk when they're talking. Listen. Very important to listen. I mean, you learn. I mean, we have a great responsibility as children of God. We got to forget about self. Get to that place in our lives where we forget about self and reach out to those hurting people, because there are a lot of hurting men. I've seen men right in our church talk about this situation, and I have to say, you need to hold on. We're going through, but you're going to make it. How do you do that? They'll ask me somebody, how do you do that? And you got to be able to answer. We have a job to do.
You know, what I'm saying, just like listening, when you go to a person, they want you to listen. So you sit there and you listen. Don't try to break in. You listen, and they will talk, and they will talk. And they're looking at you while they're talking to see your facial expression. Does she want me to hush? So you go there with a smile and with this gentle calmness and all that stuff within them. And you let them say what they have to say. You just do not have the idea of how that help them inside, help them to just release that stuff. And you don't know what that's going to do for them. Well, you go in there, you think you're knowing everything, you got to speak and you got to run on. No, you sit still and you let them. And then you learn from them and they learn from you. And then, you know, we're both blessed.
I think something that's really critical and key is touch, the power of touch. I don't think we really understand how wonderful a non-sexual hug can be. I have a friend who's into hugging, and actually it's a wonderful ministry, it's a wonderful thing when it's a non-sexual touch that's going on. Another thing is to remember, I'm not perfect, and I remember I've been through situations. And sometimes that is why God allows people to go through situations, so we will be able to show empathy to other people and not get it together. Why don't you just stop that? Come on now, get with it. So he allows us to go through things so that we can be more empathetic. And then another aspect is listening, loving, and then sometimes God does give us something that's like a little hard word. Sometimes. But you have to be in sync with the Spirit about when to insert, when not to. But it's always about love. Even if it's tough, it's always about love. Now, you have in your hands a handout, and it's called 31 Days of Praise. What I mentioned was when we're going through, we mentioned some things that we do. Sometimes we can be very bitter. We can become very angry when we're going through. And one thing you mentioned was to leave God altogether. You've been a Christian all your life and you just leave God altogether because you don't understand. But how many of us take that time to come closer to God, to praise God with everything that's within us? It's a difficult thing to do. It's a difficult step to make. During the midst of all the deaths in our church and other interpersonal things I had going on, someone gave me a book. And I know it's from God. I'm not going into details about how I got the book. But the book was called 31 Days of Praise. And I reached out after I read that book and reread it. And wow, it really helped. I reached out to the author, but the author had died. She had died. And her son, I ended up talking to her son. And I told him that I felt impressed by God to do a show. And actually I had said for women, but then later, if you notice with the flyers, I said men and women, but we ended up with women, so God knew what he wanted. A show for women on emotional healing. And he gave me permission without asking for any compensation because he knew that the ministry that I have from God is faith-based, faith finance, and I have limited resources that God has given to me. So he allowed me to talk about this today for free. Now, he did not know, he did not ask me, talk about the book, mention the book. He didn't do that. But I'm doing it because of gratitude and gratefulness because of what God gave me in the gift of that book. And I want other people to know about the book, 31 Days of Praise. Well, anyway, in the book, you go through 31 days where you just read one day at a time and you meditate and focus on one day at a time. And I can tell you there's certain days that you're like, I'm through with this, you know. And the author talks about it at the beginning of the book. Well, I chose a few days that we're going to address here today that were helpful to me. On day 1, it talks about the need to not curse God and die. It talks about the need to not run away from God, but praise him with everything that's in you. Be positive. Think about everything you have to be grateful for. So we're going to take time out right now, and I want you to think about everything that you can, a few things you want to share about what God has done for you and what you want people to know. Let's praise right now. Let's bring a positive atmosphere to this.